Hello, I am Mathematics, and I want to tell you a story. A story of how human desperation, in a city of just unbelievable wealth and complexity, forced me to become something entirely new.
So, where does my story begin? Not in some quiet, dusty library or an ivory tower. No. It begins in the absolute chaos of the bustling markets and courtrooms of 9th century Baghdad. At the time, this was the greatest city on earth. I mean, it was the center of everything. Trade, law, faith, and with all that complexity, well, that's where the problem started. Urgent, messy, human problems that desperately needed answers.
Just imagine this situation. This wasn't some theoretical puzzle. It was a real family, a real inheritance. The law was very specific. A widow gets 1/8, and daughters get half of what sons get. Simple, right? Well, not so much. When you actually try to apply those rules, the fractions just become this tangled, confusing mess. So the people of Baghdad, they turned to me for help. But the tools I had back then, a few scattered tricks from ancient Greece and Babylon, they just weren't cutting it.
And look, it wasn't just this one problem. It was a perfect storm of them. Head down to the markets, and you've got merchants trying to calculate profits and loans, dealing with currencies from China all the way to Spain. Then look up at the sky. In the mosques, astronomers needed me to map the heavens just to set the daily prayer times accurately. So you see, inheritance, commerce, even faith itself, they were all screaming for a better, more powerful, more reliable version of me.
But right there, in the heart of Baghdad, something incredible was happening. A new institution rose up that would give me a place to grow. It was called Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. And let me tell you, this was not just a library. It was an engine for creating brand new knowledge.
Just think about that for a second. The Caliph, a man named al-Mamun, paid translators the weight in gold of the books they translated. I mean, can you imagine? Knowledge wasn't just valuable. It was literally worth its weight in gold. And so, here, all my scattered parts, the geometry from the Greeks, some clever techniques from the Babylonians, those incredible numbers from India, they were all gathered together from across the known world. You had scholars of different faiths, all working side by side, united by one single goal: to understand.
So, the whole purpose of the House of Wisdom was pretty clear. It was to take me from being just a collection of clever tricks, something only a few people knew, and transform me into a complete, organized body of knowledge, something that could be taught, that could be shared, and most importantly, something that could be built upon.
And into this incredible crucible of learning walked a man who would give me a brand new voice. His name was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi.
Now, al-Khwarizmi, he wasn't just some thinker lost in abstractions. Nope, he was a synthesizer, a doer. He was tasked by the Caliph himself to solve the urgent, real-world problems of the empire. He looked at the chaos of the city's needs. Then he looked at this immense wealth of knowledge stored in the House of Wisdom, and he saw a path forward. He saw a way to bring it all together into something truly useful.
And you don't have to take my word for it. In his own words, his goal was crystal clear and incredibly practical. He wanted to teach what is easiest and most useful in arithmetic. The kind of stuff people needed for inheritance, lawsuits, trade, all the messy parts of life. See, he wasn't creating me for quiet contemplation. He was forging me into a tool for everyday life. This new math had to work for judges and merchants and engineers, right then and there.
So he gave his new system a name, Algebra. And yes, that's where we get the word algebra. It's a simple but really powerful idea. It's about restoration or completion. Think of it like this. If something was missing from one side of an equation, you could restore it, as long as you did the same thing to the other side to keep everything balanced. It's all about that balance.
And thanks to al-Khwarizmi, I wasn't just a set of disconnected ideas anymore. I became a system, a reliable, step-by-step procedure for finding answers. In fact, his name, al-Khwarizmi, even gave us another really important word: algorithm.
What he did was revolutionary. He classified every single problem he encountered into one of 6 standard types. Now you might be asking, why 6? Well, it was simple, really. He only worked with positive numbers, so he needed different categories for different arrangements. This was a game changer. It was like creating a taxonomy for solving problems. For the very first time, you could look at your problem, identify its type, and know exactly which set of steps to follow.
But here's the really brilliant part. He didn't just give people a bunch of abstract rules to memorize. No, he provided a visual way to understand why they worked. It's a technique we now call completing the square.
So let's walk through one of his type 4 problems to see how it works.
Okay, so here's the genius of his method. It's so visual. You start by imagining a square with an area of x squared. Then you add some rectangles around it to represent your 10x. But look, the shape isn't a perfect square yet, right? It's incomplete. To literally complete the square, you have to fill in those 4 little missing corners. So you calculate their area, which turns out to be 25, and you add that to both sides of the equation to keep it all balanced. And just like that, boom, the left side is now a perfect square. And the whole thing equals 64. Well, what's the square root of 64? It's 8, which means the answer, x, has to be 3. By following these steps, anyone, absolutely anyone, could get the right answer every single time. This was my new superpower: reliable, repeatable, and teachable.
So, Al-Khwarizmi's system was this monumental achievement, right? It bridged pure thought with real-world necessity, but it was built on a secret, a revolutionary idea that he had borrowed from another civilization entirely.
And he was very open about his sources, which is great. He acknowledged that his methods for calculation, the very foundation of his whole system, were only possible because of a numerical system he had learned about from Hindu scholars in India. It was a system that unlocked a whole new level of elegance and efficiency.
So what was it? What if I told you that the most powerful tool in all of mathematics was the idea of nothing? Yep, the foundation of his incredibly practical system, the secret that made his algebra work so beautifully, was a huge philosophical leap, a concept that many cultures had resisted for centuries, the concept of zero. It was the gift of nothing, an idea that would go on to transform me and the world forever. But that's a story for another time.